Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm very excited to have Michael Brenner join us. Michael, welcome.
Thank you, Michael. It's the show of Michaels.
It is. You beat me to it. I was going to say something about the two Michaels here. I believe, if I'm not incorrect, 1982, the most popular name in America, and we've both been blessed with it.
That's right.
Listen, well, Michael, to start us off here, for those who aren't familiar with you and your work, just take a moment and share with us what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the CEO of my own company, Marketing Insider Group. We do marketing consulting as well as leadership coaching and keynote speaking for conferences and brands all over the world.
Terrific. When I looked at your past and kind of where you came from, you have quite the track record in the corporate world and executive positions with companies like Nielsen and SAP. Did you find shifting to becoming a consultant easy? Did you think to yourself, like, how can I become a consultant? Or did it just happen through a natural transition?
Yeah, I mean, it was something I think I always wanted to do. Even early in my career, I thought it would be pretty cool to be out on your own. But life didn't take me there as quickly as I probably thought. I was with my first company for 9 years, believe it or not. I was there in both sales and marketing and made it all the way up to a relatively senior executive role. And the company just kept giving me good reasons to stay. The first company was Nielsen, and it was just a great environment. I learned a lot and experienced a couple of different functional roles, and I had some great mentors. But after that, I really sought a new experience. And so I joined 2 startups after that as chief marketing officer, and then we jumped kind of back into the large corporate world with SAP, and then back to a startup, and now out on my own. So it's been a roller coaster of in and out of companies and startups, and now out on my own. It's exciting. I'll say that. It's terrifying too. It's kind of like a roller coaster. If you didn't feel that fear, it wouldn't be fun. And I love it. I feel truly blessed to be able to do it.
What was the point? I mean, do you remember, was it like a specific situation or problem that came up? Like, what was it that made you decide, okay, this is it. I'm finally going to go out on my own and become a consultant?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways the universe was speaking to me, and not to be too touchy-feely or spiritual about it, but life presents itself, I think, for most of us, if we're open to it. And I literally had people telling me, hey, why are you working for this company? We'd love to pay you directly for the same kind of service. You'd get paid more. We'd pay less for it and not support the building that your current company is paying for and things like that. So yeah, I had a couple of folks, mentors push me in that direction. Ultimately, clients sort of pull me in that direction. And I love my boss. He's a pretty good guy most days. So that was always an incentive. And yeah, it's been a blast.
Right. Your boss being yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just in case anyone didn't clue in on that and thinking you're talking back about your Nielsen or SAP days, but no, you are the boss.
Yeah.
Or at least, we typically like to think so. Yeah. So how did you get your first consulting client then?
My story is pretty common. My first client was actually my former company. So I had actually 2 or 3 projects going with SAP, thanks to a couple of colleagues who were really looking for the kinds of services and expertise that I was able to provide and had provided for dozens of companies since I had left SAP. So they gave me the runway, I think, even though I had been gone for about almost 2 years. Those connections that I made inside that company, having invested in a lot of relationships there, really paid off when it came time for me to reach out to folks, say, hey, I'm thinking about going off on my own. What do you think? And it was just serendipity that a couple of folks said, hey, I actually need that kind of support right now and have budget to do so. So yeah, the first, I think, 6 months of being out on my own, I had that cushion there while I kind of built out the infrastructure and the things that you need to do in order to start building pipeline and getting leads and all those kinds of things. So I was really fortunate in that way. And a lot of the entrepreneurs I talked to have a similar story. They had what we call runway in the industry, some sort of sugar daddy, sugar mama client to kind of get us through those early growing pains. Being or having one customer or client is not a great place to be. So I wanted to quickly move away from that, and happy to and fortunate to count SAP still as a customer today, but also another 20, 30 companies that I support.
That's really interesting. And I want to just dig a little bit deeper into that. So when you transitioned out of SAP, you became a consultant, and then SAP was your first client as a consultant. Was that when you just left SAP, or did you work somewhere else after SAP before becoming a consultant?
Yeah, it was not right after I left. So interestingly, I left SAP to join a startup, and the startup asked, I was the head of content marketing at SAP. And I joined a technology company, a marketing technology company, where they basically asked me to build out a strategy services package or product for them to essentially apply what I did at SAP to their clients or customers. So again, it was kind of another runway in a sense, in that I was given, in 2 years, given that opportunity to define the service offering and kind of codify or formalize the framework that I had used. Luckily, I was able to retain that intellectual property when I left. So yeah, basically it was almost 2 years between the time that I left SAP and then them calling me back and saying, hey, we've got this division and this division and this division. Each are looking to kind of do what you did back when you were here 2 years ago. You've just spent the last 2 years implementing that framework for, I think I did 40 different consulting projects in that 2 years. So I really honed out the details. And then by the time I got back to SAP, I was able to apply that.
And how did you stay top of mind for them during that period when you actually left there as an employee, went out with this other startup, then kind of started doing your own thing? Like, how did you stay top of mind so that SAP knew what you were doing? And did they reach out to you, or did you reach out to them when you were looking to get that first real solid consulting client?
It wasn't intentional. I mean, it was really quite organic in that I had kept in touch with SAP as a big company. I was one of, I think, 4,000 marketers inside the company of 60,000 when I left, now 80,000 people. In fact, my wife still works there. She's in HR. But just, I made a lot of friends in the 7 or 8 years I was there, 7.5 years, made a lot of really good connections and just kept in touch with a lot of those folks. And so as they followed my career, and, I do a lot of public speaking. And so they'd see me at the conference, on the conference circuit. I do quite a bit of writing. So I think I was always top of mind without it really being a specific intention, so that when I announced, and in some cases where I was just talking personally with folks that were still at the company, that I was going to go off on my own, it just turned out that they, and luckily for me, had a couple of projects and some budget ready to go.
What did you find was the greatest challenge for you growing your consulting business?
Yeah, I wish I could say was. And
let's talk about that. Like, what was in the early days? And then next, let's come to what maybe is a challenge for you right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's interesting. It's funny. A lot of people say, like, how did you get through like the setting up an LLC and building a website and getting a lawyer and having insurance, like all of the really, really basic stuff for setting up a business? I'd speak to those folks out there that maybe haven't taken the leap yet. You figure those things out like with a couple of Google searches and some free online tools and things like that. I mean, it was days, if not weeks, for me to figure that kind of stuff out. Those are the details. I would offer advice to anybody out there thinking about taking this step. Never let those things become the obstacle. I thought they were much bigger challenges than they ended up being. So that would be the first point about the was. And when I set up the business, the act of setting up the business was not the big challenge I thought it was going to be.
So what was the challenge in the early days for you?
Yeah. So, again, I was lucky, a shared experience, I think, with a lot of entrepreneurs that had that sort of first client in the bag. So the challenge from that point and till to this day is I'm busy. I've been busy every day. The main challenge is I'm not sure I'm going to be busy in 4 months. It's like a rolling 3 months of work all the time. And so I will admit to losing some sleep every night, thinking about what am I going to be doing in October? And then I look back and I remember, well, last July I was having the same concern. So it's just building out predictability to the funnel, or the pipeline, as we call it in marketing, or just being able to forecast revenue out for beyond, let's say, the next quarter, 3 to 4 months. That's the challenge. Some of the ways that I'm trying to solve that. Number one, I'm changing some of the service offerings that I started with. And instead of thinking about what I do as a one-time activity, trying to maintain some level of recurring, ongoing revenue with some of the clients that I have, I'm also looking at building out actual products, things that you could go online and buy without, as we say, trading time for money.
Right.
And so those are the things that I've struggled with. And as a consultant, I think that's the challenge most of us face is we are trading time for money and we only have so much time. And the ones that really get to go from low, mid 6 figures to high 6 or low 7 figures are the ones that have figured out how to stop trading time for money.
Definitely. And I think one thing you just mentioned there, Michael, is so important. And in my book, The Elite Consulting Mind, I actually wrote a chapter on it called Worry Well, which is this idea that it's like all entrepreneurs worry. And if we're not worrying to a degree, then we become complacent. Mm-hmm. And so it's actually a very healthy thing. I heard a quote the other day, and I can't just remember who mentioned it, but it was Ray Dalio. And he said that if you worry, you don't need to be worried. But if you don't worry, you probably should worry. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's like this idea that oftentimes we think to ourselves, oh, like something's wrong with me because I'm worrying so much, or why am I always concerned? And if we trace back, like you just mentioned, like look at the patterns, we can actually see that often the things that we're worried about, we're always worried about them and they always work out okay. And so we try and worry less, but at the same time, it's also just a part of that we're growing. And as we're mm-hmm. growing and challenging ourselves with new things, like we're just going to continue to find reasons to worry or to think about what we could be doing better. Yeah. So that certainly to me resonates. And I think with many other consultants would resonate as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So you mentioned, and I definitely saw this, you speak, you write, I think you've been blogging since 2010 from what I saw. Mm-hmm. Are those still your best methods for lead generation in terms of speaking and writing, or have you found something else that is working even better for you to get more clients?
Well, yeah, they're definitely my top source of leads. And interestingly, I don't really look at them as activities that I do to support the business. In fact, my very first blog post was, why am I starting a blog? And essentially the reason I defined in that article, knowing that no one was reading it because it was my first one, right, was essentially I'm looking to share the things that I've learned. And mm-hmm. as Jack Lemmon said, I think sending the elevator down to those that are coming up and just trying to improve the profession. For me, it's the function of marketing. And now even more broadly, leadership overall and entrepreneurial mindsets. And so that was the original reason I started doing that then. And then moving onto the stage and really breaking through the fear that I had of public speaking was an extension of that desire to help people and become a consultant. My main objective is just to help those that might be able to be helped by the things that I've learned and the things that I've done. And so for me, that mission has guided all of those activities. And that's obviously, I think, to answer your question, then led to speaking and writing as a source of leads for me. The other one is referrals, obviously. And it's always a challenge to try to figure out, should you be doing more? And has somebody else figured out the secret? But for me, it's an authentic kind of natural expression of my mission. And that leads to business for me.
And you talked about this idea where you kind of worry to a degree of what's going to happen 4 months down the road. And that's happened in the past and things always work out. But based on what you've seen in your business over time, are there changes that you are actively looking to make to improve the pipeline and the stability so that you can reduce that level of worry and get even more leads or even more referrals? Or is there anything you've identified that you're looking to improve?
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
Well, yeah, moving away, like I said, from one-time services to ongoing was the first step. Moving from time for money to sellable online products was, or is, I guess, part of my next step. And yeah, and then the other thing too that I'm trying to work on and have been working on, and I know a lot of folks doing what we do have mastered this, is really finding strategic long-term relationships that aren't putting all eggs in one basket, but provide some base level of income I always say, if I could just make that number that helps me pay the mortgage, I would sleep a little better at night, knowing that whatever comes on top of that is, I still need to live, but at least I know that my house is paid for. And so, so that's something that was probably the third leg of the stool for me and have really been investing in that.
Can you tell me a little bit more like what you mean there specifically? What would that look like?
There's a marketing technology company that many people know called Marketo. Mm-hmm. And, it's no secret that I work with them because I speak at their events. So it's all public facing.
Right.
Yeah. But it's the point where I'm an influencer, quote unquote, in the marketing space. They're trying to reach marketers as a technology company. And so we just had a strategic conversation about, hey, how can I do what I do in a way that also helps you to connect with the people you need to reach? So we just formed a relationship. It's not as strategic as I'd like. They never really are. Companies as big as they are still have quarterly budget cycles and things like that. So there's always those challenges to work through. But I'm so grateful for the relationship I have with them because I look back and the reason I was able to sleep better in October of last year was largely due to a relationship like that one where we just sat down and said, hey, what's a series of things that we can do together over time? That's a relationship that's really helped me. And so I'm looking at other relationships like that. For some folks, it might be advising, being put on retainer for a company as an advisor, or getting into some sort of regular content or consulting relationship with organizations, coaching relationships, mentoring, all of those kinds of things can really help, I think, folks that are in our position.
Yeah, it's a really great example. How has your structure of your company changed over the years? Have you built up a team, full-time people, contractors? Just give a sense of like what your company looks like right now.
Yeah, I never wanted the stress of having employees. I went out on my own and I wanted to support other people who've gone out on their own. And so, I had a philosophy from the beginning that I'm not looking to take over the world. I'm not looking to build a company with employees, with overhead. Mm-hmm. I don't want somebody else's mortgage and family financial commitments adding to my stress as well. So it's purely been structured as an outsourced freelancer model. And I've got great relationships with folks that are basically employees at this point on both the accounting side, the legal side, marketing, all of those kind of core components. And then some of the execution stuff that I do as well has all really been freelancer or outsource supported.
Yeah, and I'm interested in that because a lot of consultants have the challenge when they're looking to scale their business. It's the question of, do I hire people now and take on more potential risk where like I don't have enough work for them, or wait until I get more work? But then what if I get too much work and I don't have the resources and the people to help me to deliver on it? So what's been your thinking and your strategy to handle that?
When I first started, I had an opportunity to take on some investment from a guy that I'm friends with in the industry who'd successfully started his own agency and gone off and become a consultant. He was willing to invest in the time I was going to need to build a business. But in lieu of that, I'd have to give up a significant portion of the company, of my own revenues going forward. And so I think that's the decision that people have to make. Anybody can go get financing if your idea is unique enough and if there's a relatively great story behind the need and you've done a good job of defining the opportunity in the marketplace. Pretty much anybody can go get funding. But the moment you do that, you're giving up control. It's not like you get a blank check with no accountability. And it's more than just having to make the service payment on the debt. You've got essentially a board at that point that you have to serve. And so, I made a conscious decision not to take other people's money. So there's really three kinds of ways you do this. One, you're independently wealthy and you can do whatever you want. Two, you bootstrap it like I did, which means you have to make those kinds of decisions. Like, we're going to go with an outsourced model until something changes. And then the third is you take money from somebody else. And, I didn't want to do that. I worked for a startup that I think took too much VC money. And I think a lot of startups have sold their soul to the VC world in a way. There's not to criticize that world. I think there's a lot of really successful models and approaches there, but there is such a thing as taking too much money.
Right. And Michael, if I can just bring us back though for a second, but in terms of you actually building your business and going out there, prospecting, giving talks, writing, right, getting referrals, a challenge that many consultants have is, should they bring on resources, extra people? Should they kind of build their bench of talent now and either employ or contract those people before they start winning those projects so that they can then deliver on them and have the capacity? Or do they wait until they land those larger projects, but then deal with the potential situation that they don't have the right people to actually help them to deliver on that? So I'm just really interested in terms of how have you handled that, or how have you thought about that situation in balancing your capacity and also not taking on too much risk by employing people or contracting them early without enough work to support them.
Yeah, I definitely did not make the decision to invest up front in getting those resources with pretty specific intention. And again, I guess I went off on a tangent there, but part of that tangent was in order to do that, you need to spend money that you don't yet have as any part of a revenue model. Mm-hmm. And so to spend money before money is coming in means you got to go get it or take it from somewhere. And I didn't have it to spend. I didn't want to borrow it. I didn't want to bring someone financing into the business. So the only option, if you make that decision, is to do the work, sell the work, and then build out your resources behind it. You figure it out. I mean, it's that part, your question was never something that I was worried about, to be totally honest. As a paid speaker at conferences, essentially I'm getting paid to do my own marketing because of the years of blogging and writing that I've done. I've got a pretty large built-in audience that I was able to tap into. So I had that sort of years of investment already, something I was able to tap into. But yeah, that was not something that was ever really a choice for me.
You bring a lot of experience and skills and track record and just everything from the corporate world to your consulting business. Many people wonder, when they have a lot of different experiences and a lot of different ways that they can help prospective clients and offer consulting services, how did you approach deciding what specific consulting services to offer and what really to focus on?
I mean, I'll let the market decide for me.
Tell me more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, to be totally fair. I mean, it was, like I said, I had 2 or 3 people reach out to me and say, hey, I need this, and you're working for a company and I could buy it from your company, but you could do it without them. And those early conversations, basically people said, here's money to do something. And that is essentially what formed the basis of my product and service portfolio and offering. And that evolved over time. So when people said, hey, we'd like you to come to our conference and speak, and I get so many of those requests, I started saying the only way I could filter them out and decide which ones to do is to take the ones that are going to pay me to do it. Mm-hmm. And then I realized there's this whole world of paid speakers and started kind of figuring that world out. Then I talked to a lot of my existing clients who outsource certain services to folks that have less experience than I do for more money than I would offer. And so I started saying, hey, I think I could give you a better offering that you're getting from some other company for a lower price. And so, again, I had some ideas going in, speaking, writing, consulting, the 3 things that I do. The mix has changed every single quarter, and my focus on how I kind of promote those different services changes a little bit. But, that's pretty much it. I'm just following the market.
And definitely, I mean, I certainly understand the market is what's most important, right? Because a lot of people have ideas of what they want to sell or offer, but if the market doesn't want to buy it, then it doesn't really matter, right? So that part makes a lot of sense to me. But how do you manage all of that? I mean, if you're each quarter coming up with new offerings or new ideas or new services to provide, does it ever feel overwhelming, or do you have a system or an approach that really helps you to stay on top of it?
Yeah, there's something I call the secret of happiness.
Let's do it. Yes.
Yeah, and I think I've stolen this from somewhere. I don't think this is an original idea. I wish I could remember the source of it, but I'll take credit for it in the meantime. But basically, I think everything in life can be explained in a Venn diagram. So I want you to just imagine in your head, this is kind of makes more sense if I could draw it, but just imagine in your head 3 circles. And inside of those circles are 3 things. In one circle is the things that we know, and it's the stuff we've done. It's the experience we have. And in another circle is the things that we love to do. And in a third circle is the things that people want to pay us for. We've all probably seen variations of this, but the things that we're going to be most successful at are where those 3 things come together, the things that we like to do, the things that we know how to do, and the things that people want to pay us for. And that's the model. I mean, I follow that. I have a client right now that I won't mention who's really pushing me into stuff that I do not love to do. Mm-hmm. And I've already kind of decided, I think it was subconscious until really today and this morning, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? I'm pretty sure I'm going to make sure that its contract does not renew for 2019. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing against them personally. It's just pulling me in a direction of things that I know how to do and they're willing to pay me for, but I do not love it. And, what happened this morning is I found myself kind of jumping too quickly to a deliverable. I had to pull myself back a little bit and say, wait a second, this isn't at the level of quality that I normally would deliver on. And let's hold that and get it to where it needs to be. And so I kind of reflected on that a little bit, and I realized it's because I hate what I'm doing. I don't love this thing, this aspect of the execution for this one client. So you have to know yourself and listen to yourself and what you like to do and what you know, and listen to the outside world. I got a LinkedIn request today from somebody who saw me speak at a conference I was really nervous about because it was a little bit off topic and a little bit outside of my typical functional area of expertise. And I was super nervous about it, but I had a really strong, passionate message I wanted to deliver. It was an audience that wasn't as sort of outgoing as I typically see. But I got a LinkedIn request today from somebody who said that it was the best presentation they'd seen all year and they loved it. And that was just obviously it made me feel good, but more than that, it was an insight. It was an insight into, okay, maybe I should pursue this industry and this function and this message.
You've clearly accomplished a lot, Michael. I've heard from many people who do a lot of speaking that requires a lot of energy. Writing certainly requires focus and dedication as well. I'm very, very interested to find out, what does your daily routine look like as a consultant and speaker and writer right now?
Because I'm on the road so much, I find that there's an ebb and a flow in energy for sure, and there's no typical day. So at any given day, I could be on a client site, I could be on a stage, I could be on a plane, or like I am right now, sitting at my desk and speaking to you. So there really is no typical day, but because it's so varied with travel and speaking versus consulting versus traveling versus in-office homework, what I try to do is really manage my energy. Traveling is exhausting. Speaking is exhausting. I'm an introvert, and a lot of good speakers, I've heard a lot of the best speakers are introverted, believe it or not. So it means that I don't draw energy from large crowds. And so I need to find a way to kind of get that quiet time back in. Sometimes I just binge watch Netflix. Sometimes I read a book. I take a walk. I try to exercise, eat right, all those kinds of good things. But managing energy, I think a lot of people think, entrepreneurs are all born with this sort of unlimited, unbridled energy. I get 7.5, 8 hours of sleep every night if I can. I need it, and need to manage my energy almost like an athlete might. That's kind of the way that I think about it, is I need to make sure I build up those reserves for the times when I'm going to have to spend it.
Well, Michael, I really want to thank you for coming on here and sharing, a bit of your journey and story with us. Really appreciate it. What's the best way for people to learn more about your work and also to connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So you can check out my website, marketinginsidergroup.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I share a couple times a week on LinkedIn, and Twitter's probably where I do most of my sharing, at Brenner Michael, and invite your audience to connect and share and maybe start a conversation with me on any of those platforms.
Fantastic. We'll have the show notes, all the details, all the links here to Michael's sites and so forth. Just head over to consultingsuccess.com and type in Michael Brenner, or head over to the podcast section. You'll find it all there. Michael, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.